The views and opinions expressed on Twala Business News do not necessarily reflect those of the Twala Global Network nor those of the production company. All necessary precautions have been taken to minimize any bias and/or prejudice.
What's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the words Vrrphaa? Car, right? Well, today I'll be joined by a game changer using the name Vrrphaa. Curious? Find out. Welcome to Twala Business News. I'm your host, Precious Mphuthi, and today I'm here with Tebello, Caba, the owner and founder of Vrrphaa, an e-hailing business that transports you from any pickup point to your final destination. Tebello, how are you doing today?
Very well, thank you, Precious. Thank you guys for inviting me to the platform, and I hope you all too, and hello to the viewers also.
I'm good, thanks. Tell us more about yourself, your family background. Were you raised by both parents? Do you have siblings? And where did you attend school?
It's grown by a single hardworking mother. Unfortunately, my dad passed away when I was very young. I do have siblings. I have 3 siblings, 2 sisters and 1 brother. And I grew up in the Vaal. I grew up in Tebello. This is home for me. I went to primary school here, went to high school here, and inevitably started a business here also.
Interesting. Now let's talk about your business. How did the name Vrrphaa come about?
That's a very interesting question, and I get it a lot. But when me and my partner ventured into building this brand, we were looking for something or a name that is going to already represent what we're about.
So I think it's very bold of you to embark on this journey of entering e-hailing with so many established competitors. What is then your general view on competition?
We're living in capitalistic economy, Precious. The South African economy is a capitalistic economy, and the fundamentals of capitalism in itself constitute of competition in the marketplace, having different brands competing for people to support their brand, and this is crucial for innovation in a way, because it forces people to think out of the box, and if it's healthy, that is, it forces brands to work in different ways and try to bring about to make their product or service different from the competition, and this is what results in innovation and change and growth and all of that. So it is for me a very necessary thing, competition, that is.
So for anyone starting a business, capital can be a challenge. What or how have you tackled this problem of funding? How did you raise enough capital to start your business?
Well, see, the thing is, people want to, regularly people want to wait for funding. They think, I don't know, it's just gonna fall out of the sky. I don't know, maybe, but then they want to wait for funding to bring itself to them and all of that. But then, really, for me, just passion and dedication is all the funding that you need when venturing into a new establishment or trying to build a brand or anything like that. So I'm happy to declare that, and that's really one of the accolades I'm proud of with the establishment, that Vrrphaa has been 100% self-funded. We haven't acquired capital from any means, whether it be equity or liability. We have, from the profits that we made, we have built the brand on whatever money that the brand makes, basically.
Financially smart, that is. So, Tebello, what is one of the biggest challenges that you've encountered since entering this industry and attaining growth in this market?
Well, the biggest problem that we have encountered has to do with legislation. The barriers of entry into the market are very high, and that is the transport industry in itself is a very dangerous industry, and most people recognize it to be one. But luckily, I love challenges, and it is a challenging market to try to get into, and but they just don't want to accommodate new things or new change and all of that in the space. So getting legislation and getting legal has been our biggest challenge to this point. And we're trying by all means to find means that we can incorporate to overcome these challenges.
Can you then further explain to us how have you tried to overcome these challenges such as legislation? How have you tried to deal with them, or at least deal with the ones that you have intended to?
So we have alternative ways that we could go about handling the situation, and it's just been basically a case of trial and error. But then one which we feel like is the most fit at this point, and one which we are definitely just focusing on right now is just trying to get, because we were looking to actually have the paperwork in which we can allow drivers to come and then we help them register ourselves. But then because there's a problem, there's another way. There's always another way if you look hard enough, I believe. So we're looking to find already establishments which are already in the transport industry and give them the platform so that they can use it. They already have their own cars, they already have their own papers, and they just use our platform and we give them clients. And that way it alleviates the pressure or necessity for us to have to go through the Department of Transport, which is just a little bit tricky at this moment. So that is the way that we're trying to overcome this big challenge that we have.
So now I hear that students are a major target market in your business. What is the idea behind this philosophy?
So there is this thing of having a narrative of having a tunnel vision. It's very necessary when you go into any venture, that is. It's very necessary for you to know who you want to cater for. It's very necessary for you to understand the demographics of that category that you're looking to cater for. And we felt that it would be beneficial for us to specialize and specialize to a certain demographic, to a certain category in the larger market. And for us, it's not necessarily just students, it's the youth generally. And these are people that are going to be growing up with time. These are people that are young, the students, some of them getting into the workspace. And we want to be part of those changes and part of that growth with them. And as they grow, we grow also. So it is, we just want to focus on them and diligently deliver our services to students, the youth, I mean to say, sorry.
Now I want to talk about something important. Tebello, in most cases, women fall victim to robbings, human trafficking, and rape. The list goes on, all at the hands of e-hailing taxi drivers. Is there perhaps a safety measure that you have implemented to tackle this issue?
One of the biggest problems that is the biggest problem in the industry, and obviously our team, we have sleepless nights trying to find ways and that we can implement to ensure that our platform is safe, to ensure that the clients are safe and they're comfortable in riding with our drivers, I mean to say, that is. So one of the ways that we've implemented is that and that's also one of the advantages that we have, since we are a South African brand and basically our company is still relatively small, we're able to basically ensure that every driver that goes to our platform we screen them, we know them, and we don't have to rely just on the technology to tell us that we actually have or going to be able to have people on the ground that inspect these drivers and ensure that the drivers adhere to our company's code of conduct and all of that, and ensure that we know these drivers and we know how to access them, which is something unfortunately I can't say for our competitors, that is, because they're huge in scale and it's hard for them to keep track of every single driver on using their platform.
That is true, because safety does come first.
It does.
Now moving on to school. I hear that you are a full-time NW student. Tell me, how do you balance between being a businessman and being a full-time student?
That one is difficult, and it has been difficult. In fact, juggling, basically you can't worship two kings at the same time. One is bound to suffer in the process, and obviously I'm a business enthusiast. This is what I love, this is my passion, this is where I want to be. So when I started this venture, the excitement was just still there, and I started dropping off in terms of my academics, and I'm only now trying to find the balance between the two. And unfortunately, men are not like women. It's hard for us to multitask generally, but then I'm just trying my best right now, but I'm starting just about to get the skill right.
Okay, that's good. Now, what would you say between the theory learned in varsity as well as street learning via trial and error, which one do you think is better?
I believe personally that they work cohesively. Like when put in practice simultaneously, they can practically work magic. But it goes with the individual, because some people basically are not gifted academic wise, but they're gifted street wise, and that works for them. And some people are gifted academic wise and not street wise, and that also works for them too. But then I believe having them cohesively working together can definitely be a lot more beneficial to whatever that you're trying to do.
So, what would you say your vision is for the next 5 years or so in terms of Vrrphaa?
We are in our strategy, and that's like middle term basically for us. But then we're aiming to ensure that we have covered all ground in South Africa by within 5 years. We are aiming to ensure that we in every province, our brand presence is known in the country within 5 years, and people have identified with the brand, and we have a strong following by then.
I like that, and I can't wait for that. So, what is your general view on the impact of COVID-19 on the economy? Do you perhaps think there's a better way to prevent businesses from collapsing, maybe in the next outbreak of a deadly virus?
A lot of business did go under through this crucial period, which is basically a surprise to every one of us in the business environment and the public at large. Neither of us was expecting what's happening to be happening, or what happened to be, because I mean we're slowly getting through it now, finally. But I feel like most SMMEs, that is small enterprises, the owners of these businesses, they're just looking to live hand to mouth, and they're not looking to invest, they're not looking to save. Whatever proceeds that they make are immediately dispersed off, and that is a big problem, because we need to start thinking about growing. We need to start thinking about having, or these tough times when they come, how we're going to override them.
Now, Tebello, who would you say inspired you in your life?
Business sense or generally in life?
Business sense.
Okay. There is an uncle of mine that when I was young, he was married to my aunt. Unfortunately, they're divorced. But we used to visit them every holiday season and all of that. And I just admire this figure who was had the means to take care of his family, and none of us knew what he did, and every time we asked, it was just like he's a businessman. But then I just fell in love with the security that it gave, and then I attached the concept of business with security, and basically I'd say that figure is the person that inspired me the most in terms of getting into the field of business generally.
So today we see that most of the youth spend their time on YouTube, for various reasons. And it's no secret that in the business industry, there's quite a lot of people that obsess over this site. Would you then attribute any of your entrepreneurial growth to YouTube videos, perhaps?
I definitely would. But then I'll start by saying this. We're very privileged in this day and age that, we have information, by the lift of a finger, you're able to access all this knowledge on the internet. We're able to access basically figures that have made it in life, figures that are leaders in the business world. We're able to access their thoughts, we're able to access their thinking, their line of thinking, we're able to access their history and how they went about doing things. So there's literally just a wealth of information on the internet. I can't necessarily just attribute it to YouTube alone, but then there are other platforms and a whole lot of other platforms on the internet that we can source this information from, and which I feel like I want to advise people to start actually using the internet in a way that benefits them in terms of gaining knowledge, because there's literally just a wealth of knowledge.
That's true. There's really you can find anything on the internet, anything. Now, Tebello, for someone watching this right now and who maybe wants to start their own business and is scared or has a bit of doubts, what would you say that would motivate them to start their own business?
Well, there's a quote I absolutely love by Dr. David Stewart, which is to say, success doesn't cost a price. Every small step pays a dividend. So you don't necessarily have to have a whole lot of money. You don't have to have a whole lot of resources. You don't have to have everything figured out when you get into trying to start something. You just have to have your faith. You just have to have your patience, and you just have to have your persistence. Personally, that's just what I feel you need in terms of getting into or establishing a new brand. Everything else you'll figure along the way. You'll learn as you go. None of us have it all figured out, and we're all growing, we're all learning each and every day. Even myself as a young entrepreneur, I make mistakes, I learn every day. But then we just have to take risks, and it's necessary, especially if you're trying to get into the space. It's necessary for you to have the moral fiber to actually envision something. I sometimes compare entrepreneurship to art, in a sense. That in a sense that I mean to say, you have to envision something that doesn't exist yet, even if it's like a blank canvas, and then you just start painting. You don't necessarily have to know where you're going with it, but then as soon as you start and let the creative process flow and let the energies align, everything is just going to balance, and you're going to be okay at the end of the day. Whether it succeeds or not, you're going to gain something from it. So I'd advise, if ever you have anything in mind, or the viewers anybody has anything in mind, that they go ahead and just try it. There's really no reason not to. Or fear for me is a weak emotion, and shouldn't be accommodated. If you want to start something, just go for it, man.
That was motivational to even myself. Tebello, I believe that we have reached the end of our interview. This has indeed been an insightful and inspirational interview from Twala Business News. We wish you nothing but success and prosperity. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it.